Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, October 7th. This is the regular meeting of Lakewood City Council. We've got a full and exciting docket. Thank you all so very much for being here. We're very excited to have you here tonight. And if you'll please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Anderson.
Present.
Bullock. Here. George. Here. Litton.
Here.
O'Leary.
Here.
O'Malley.
Here.
Rader.
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held September 16, 2019.
Move to dispose without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes. And before we get into the top of our docket this evening, without objection, I'd like to move docket item number 19 to the top of our agenda. Hearing no objection, I believe we'll turn it over. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Item 19, Lakewood Police Department Medal of Valor presentation.
Thank you. We've got a number of esteemed representatives of our police department here this evening, and I believe we're ready to kick off the presentation of 2 Medals of Honor.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for showing up tonight. Most of you know me, Lieutenant Warner from the Lakewood Police Department. I saw one little misprint up there. It said Medal of Valor. We will not be presenting that tonight. We'll be presenting the next highest honor, which is Medal of Honor. So we got a little typographical error there, but we got it straightened out. So we will be presenting the Medal of Honor to 2 of our police officers tonight. What is the Medal of Honor? It is awarded to employee or employees who have performed an outstanding act of bravery. We have 2 instances of that tonight for sure. Of life-saving, we have that tonight. Above and beyond the normal call of duty, we have that tonight. While at extreme personal hazard to his or her life with full knowledge of the risk involved, we also have that tonight from these 2 officers. How did I become aware of this? This event happened on July 12th, about 7-something in the evening. It was still light then because it was summertime. I came in to work summer meltdown, July 13th, Saturday. I don't usually work Saturdays. I'm too old to work Saturdays. Monday through Friday, that's all I get. But I do work Saturdays. Summer meltdown, I came in, I'm walking up the back hill of the police station, the back door, and I see Officer Ron Bunner unloading his police car. And Ron Bunner is one of our CIT officers. What is a CIT officer? Crisis Intervention Team. Specially trained officers, volunteers that have learned methods, ways, and procedures to better serve the community that suffers from mental illness. And right now in the city of Lakewood, we have 28 employees in the police department who are CIT trained. 25 of those are police officers, 2 are dispatchers, 1 is a corrections officer. We even pushed a couple firemen through that as well, so we have 2 firemen that have gone through it. So the city of Lakewood total has 30 crisis intervention team trained employees. It's a big deal. I'm going to be as brief as I can tonight, so we're not going to go into a great detail about crisis intervention team, but look it up if you want to. CIT model started in Memphis in the 1980s. In Ohio, Akron PD brought it to Ohio in the year 2000. We were kind of late to the game. In 2016, we started our first class. Since then, we've put hundreds of police officers on the west side of Cleveland through the CIT class, so it's a big deal. And Ron Bunner, who's here tonight, and he'll be honored, was in one of our first groups, and they were volunteer groups. Jacob Medstrick followed shortly thereafter, and they've been doing their thing ever since. So anyway, I hate this microphone, I'm tied down. I'm walking up the back hill, and I see Ron Bunner. And I know he just worked all night. I know it's not morning, and he's got to be tired, but he's got energy in his body. And he goes, "Hey, Lieutenant, I had a heck of a CIT call last night." "Okay, Ron, good. I gotta go work. So I file that away in my memory bank, and I remember how charged up he was. I go in and do my thing all day at Summer Meltdown. Monday, I'm too busy at work to look, I want to look up the body cam on it and the report. Tuesday, I'm too busy. Wednesday, I finally get around to it, and I look up the body cam, and I find the report, and I watch both the videos. One's 50 minutes long, the other one's 47 minutes long. I start watching them, I can't stop. First of all, the scenery is panoramic, and it looks fake. It looks like a movie crew came in and shot it. And second of all, the content of the video was just amazing. I told Captain Wilkins, who'll speak here briefly in a minute, you got to watch these. And she watched them. She goes, I can't believe what I just saw. I said, okay, that's 2 out of 2. So I showed it to Chief. I gave Chief Malley a copy. And sometime during the day or the next day, he watched it. And after about half an hour, he walks to my office and says, Roger, when's the good part start? Because they're long videos. Well, he's looking for the ending, okay, when we make the save. I said, Chief, the whole thing in my book's the good part, because they helped this individual for about 40 minutes with all their heart and all their soul and all their energy for 40 minutes. They talked to this individual on the rooftop. And the good part at the end, which you'll see in detail here, it is the good part. I'm getting too long here. I don't want to take up the whole night. I edited the video down, 80 minutes of video, to I got 5 minutes. The first video we'll see from Officer Bunner's point of view. He's looking off to the west. The sun is setting. You'll see the sun setting behind the buildings. And the view has that, if you ever looked into the setting sun, that's what the view is. The second camera we'll see is Officer Medstrix. It points off to the east. You can see the Cleveland skyline. It's crystal clear. Who's got, where's the video, do we know?
Sorry, I believe we're queuing that up here shortly. Bear with us for just a moment.
City Council. Officer Ron Bunner's arrival. Take it right behind him. We've already talked to the friend who called. Said my buddy's in trouble. My buddy's visiting me here. He's up on the rooftop. Said he's going to jump off. He's going to harm himself.
Hi, Andrew. How are you today, man? Good. Can I talk to you? What's going on today? Stop here. Okay, what's going on today? Jacob. You guys can go inside. Jacob, stay with me. Come talk over here. Can I have my partner come talk with me? Can 2 of us talk to you?
20, I'll be on the floor.
Right, but if you take a leap of faith, you're showing love. But what are you fixing right now? Yeah, because as a scientist, you want to fix, right? I can't hear you. These stinking planes.
40 minutes to go work with this guy.
Okay, what do you want to understand? Everything, right? So what's a great way to understand? That obviously, that's why you're a scientist, because you want to understand. You dig deep. You put your hands on stuff, you put your mind to it, you're an intelligent, bright guy, because you want to understand what's going on and why it's happening, correct? Would you say it's a good reason? So how do we do that? So how do we continue to understand? What do we do to understand? Admit when we're wrong. Okay. All right, that's a good one. What else? Curious? All right.
Yeah, let's bum rush him.
want this to happen.
Yeah,
We don't want this to happen.
good now.
We're good. Daddy's good.
Daddy's good. Good. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We
Thank
love
you
you.
for cooperating.
Thank you for talking.
You want to talk to them?
We love you.
Tell them you're okay.
Tell them you're okay.
Hey,
You're going to
fine.
be home
Hold on.
tomorrow.
Tell them you're fine. You're going to be home tomorrow.
Jacob, good job.
You guys broke my foot. But you know what?
Sir, you saved his life.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, I am. Are you okay?
We're all here for you.
Yes.
We're all here for you. Okay? Look at this.
The best dad in the world tonight.
We're all here for you. We're all here for you, okay? Remember that. God put us all here for a reason.
Yes. Let me get up so you can get up.
Okay?
But
Here's what's
eventually-
going to happen. Listen, we're going to stand you up and we're going to handcuff you. Not that you're under arrest, because we don't want you to try to jump while we're taking you downstairs. Okay?
Your wife sent me that. Okay?
Here, we're gonna roll you over on your stomach and put you in handcuffs. I'm not gonna. I know. No, we're not. We're worried about your safety.
Yeah.
We're here for
You're not in
you.
trouble.
Okay? You're not in any trouble. We're gonna take you to the hospital and get you the help you need. Okay? Just roll over on your stomach, sir. Wait, you guys told us to surround him. No. Stay on the ground. Very dangerous. Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground. Andrew, stay on the ground. Stay on the ground. All right, grab his hand. I got his legs.
It's just for your safety, man. Okay?
No, your heart is going. My heart's. I told you my heart's going, dude. There's no joke. Put your hand on.
We're just glad you're okay, man, right?
Yeah, I'm at 124 beats a minute. That looks like I'm working out. Contact's over.
Switch views off of Officer Mestrick's camera. In a shorter video, we get a lot better view of the takedown here near the end. This guy's taking his shoes off.
You gotta help me, man.
Slowed it down to half speed. He's headed for the edge as fast as he can go.
That was my foot.
We love you, man.
We love you.
We don't want this to happen.
Yeah.
We don't want this to
You're
happen.
good now.
We're good. Daddy's good.
That is good. All right, man. Thank you so much.
I'm going to hand over to Captain Wilkins here, but just briefly, their patience, the way they work together as a team, you didn't see a lot of that because it was edited out. Their aftercare afterwards, the way they treated this individual, those are things that I won't say they wouldn't have happened, but they were less likely to have happened 29 years ago when I started. And I'm very proud of these two for that, and all of my CAT officers, because I know they're all out there doing the same thing. So nice job, guys. I'm going to turn it over to Captain Wilkins.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. It's like I told somebody, a lot of times we don't get recognized sometimes for all of the good that we do, and we do an awful lot of good. This night, I don't think there could have been probably two better officers on that roof to take care of this gentleman. I know that sometimes it's difficult to see somebody tackled or maybe using force on somebody, but at this point, they're exhausted after 40-plus minutes of trying to concentrate on him. They're talking to each other, and they're coming up with, a plan to remedy this and get him the help that he needed. I want to say that Chief Malley wished that he could be here tonight, but he had a previous engagement with his family. But like the letter states, he wanted me, again, to congratulate Officers Bunner and Maestrick because when we first saw this footage, we were really overwhelmed and knew that we definitely wanted to do this justice by recognizing them this evening. So for the members of council, on July 12th, 2019, two of our Lakewood police officers, Ron Bunner and Jacob Maestrick, spent over 40 hours on the roof of a 10-story building with a person in crisis. Both are trained crisis intervention officers, and they utilized all their skills in saving the male from jumping from the roof and obtaining the help that he needed. These officers put their own lives in jeopardy to save another's life. Please assist me in congratulating them and awarding them both with the Lakewood Police Department Medal of Honor. So that's from the Chief of Police. So again, it's not easy to sometimes see the negative in the media that we all have to face, and these guys do such a wonderful job. I'm so proud of them. You have no idea. But on that note, you know, it's kind of hits home when you have family members on a phone. So anyway, again, thank you all for coming, and if we could recognize Officers Bunner and Maestrick. One thing I would like to say too is that Chief Malley was recognized as the CIT Chief of the Year last year, and so he really wanted to be here. And it just shows the commitment that he has made to this program. And like Lieutenant Warner said, this is volunteer, and this isn't for everybody. This isn't training that everybody can do. So again, it's just a very, very, very special night for our department. Mayor, would you like to say?
Sure. And I would say that we were fortunate. I don't know if you noticed the form of the tackle.
I know, I was going to.
Officer Bunner started his academic career at the university level as a middle guard from Muskingum University. Do I have that right? So he is a professional at planting his head, his shoulders, and his hips to maximum force, and you saw the difference in body mass. And Jacob started his world as a chef. Did you ever imagine that those skills in the kitchen would be put to use in a manner like this? And I think we all were gasping at how close they were to the edge. Oh, yeah. It's a very scary moment. And I know I speak for our entire community when I say how grateful we are that you were able to help that citizen, and just as importantly, that you're here to receive this award tonight. And finally, I think it's a testimonial to our technology. We saw the body camera live. When those cameras went into place just before the RNC in 2016, our officers embraced that technology. They've learned that in so many ways it helps them to do their job and tell their story. And this is proof positive tonight. And I know that all our officers, if called to duty, would in fact step forward. So on behalf of all of our Lakewood Police, I say thank you, one and all. So on behalf of
Thank you again so much for sharing that incredibly powerful and moving video with us this evening. And since the mayor already went there, I'll say hopefully the Browns tackle like that tonight. But really, really appreciate the tremendous courage that was shown by those officers. I'll move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion passes. And since we do have, first of all, I do want to acknowledge the incredible turnout and support from our police department and officers that are here with us this evening, as well as a number of our auxiliary officers who also took the time out to be here with us this evening and show their support. And I think it really speaks volumes, about not only the Lakewood community, but certainly about the department itself, that you all are here tonight to recognize your colleagues. So thank you for that. As I said, we do have a number of docket items this evening. The next docket items that I would request without objection that we move to the top of our agenda are items 15 and 16.
Item 15, communication from Councilmember Rader regarding resolution to recognize WIC Perks pilot project at Lakewood Farmers Market.
Thank you. Councilmember Rader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear members of council, please join me in recognizing Lakewood Farm Market and the Metro Health System, Cuyahoga County WIC, and Ohio State University Extension for successful partnership piloting the WIC Perks at the Lakewood Farmers Market this season. The purpose of WIC Perks is to increase access to fresh fruits and vegetables for WIC recipients. The way it works is that WIC recipients were given the opportunity to participate in a brief cooking demonstration or educational table on 2 separate occasions at the Lakewood Farmers Market. In exchange for this participation, they receive a $20 farmers market voucher. For the 4 farmer markets that are in Cuyahoga County that participate in WIC Perks, the farmers markets experienced a high turnout of eligible participants, resulting in families receiving over $4,100 to spend on fresh fruits and vegetables. I am proud that the Lakewood Farmers Market was selected to be one of these pilots for the WIC Perks to be distributed itself through this high turnout. At this time, I would like to recognize representatives from the Lakewood Farmers Market, Metro Health Systems, and Cuyahoga County WIC program, as well as the Ohio State University Extension, who are here tonight with us to share a few words. So if it was okay with the council president, I'd like to invite them up if you want to share about the success of the program here. And I'd also like to say that this program also, that's a dollar term, but you help 257 families here in the Lakewood area connect with fresh fruits and vegetables through the WIC program and through food stamps. Having worked in that field, I know that that's extraordinary. A lot of times we certainly, I speak for myself, I support giving people food to eat on a regular basis. I think food should be a basic right for people. But to be able to encourage them through these efforts to eat fresh and to eat healthy, and to do it right here at the center of Lakewood, where we know it's working, we know people are turning out. I think it's wonderful. So thank you for doing this here in our community. And yeah, if you'd like to share a few words, we'd like to invite whomever would like to speak to the mic.
All right, I'll keep it quick. Thank you for recognizing us and having us here tonight. This was a very exciting pilot program that we ran this summer. In total, for the entire pilot program, we served over 700 families and distributed over $16,000 worth of coupons for families to spend on fresh fruits and vegetables at local farmers markets. This program, like many of our other food access programs, has a special economic development component where we are looking to increase sales for small and mid-sized farms in addition to the nutrition education and healthy food access work. This project would not have been possible without our partnership with the Cuyahoga County WIC program and our partnership, obviously, with Lakewood Farmers Market, which is managed by Jeannie Downtler. So this is very exciting. This was our first year, much more successful than we anticipated, and we're very excited to do this project again next summer. And so we are in our fundraising stage. And so thank you so much.
Well, thank you. On behalf of the WIC program, we're honored to be a part of the Lakewood City. We do have a WIC office right here in Lakewood. We bring the Farmers Market program here every year, and an opportunity to partner with the Produce Perks to bring in additional revenue was just an exciting opportunity for us. We were amazed at the turnout. We were very pleased with the number of participants that saw this as an extra benefit and came out. So we hope, as Amanda said, to continue to be able to do this in future years and to continue to serve the residents of Lakewood as we do every month.
Thank you.
I'll move to receive and file the communication. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? I would just note for myself, I was actually over at the farmer's market on Saturday and saw this program in action, and also purchased probably too much produce in the sense that I'll unfortunately watch some of it spoil. But it's a really incredible opportunity, and for those who haven't been yet, definitely check it out. I think the final farmer's market of the year is this coming Saturday, and I believe the hours are 10 to 1. Yes, thank you. So again, please do consider checking out the market. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of receiving and filing, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion passes.
Item 16, Resolution 9094-19, a resolution to recognize the success of the WIC Perks pilot project, which provided fresh produce vouchers to 257 families visiting the Lakewood Farmers Market this season.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, that motion passes. And I believe we have the signed resolution. As is our custom, if you'd like to join us up front, we can take a quick photo and present the resolution.
So how many dollars did I hear? 16,000?
For the WIC program, it's much more than that every year. We serve about 1,000 people every month with a $32 voucher.
So $32 times 1,000 times 12.
And we,
Find your window.
Item 20, communication from Mayor Summers regarding investment in human capital.
Thank you. Mayor Summers. Sorry to ambush you. I know we're just trying to acknowledge the folks who are here with us this evening. So.
Dear members of council, members of the audience, the most significant aspect of our organization's capacity to serve our citizens includes the effort and performance of our employees. Over 75% of the costs of our government are related to our human resources. A unique aspect of our city's work is that much of it is performed by self-directed employees. Think of our street crews working to patch a water main break, our police officers, such as we saw tonight, on patrol, our refuse crews collecting refuse in the neighborhoods, parks employees working independently, maintaining our 75 acres of parkland. There are many, many more examples of why it is appropriate to invest in our human capital to serve and advance the interests of our citizens. Tonight, Leslie Yerkes of Catalyst Consulting will share the scope and results of our investment in our organization's leadership capacity. You will learn how a consortium of organization behavior experts have worked together to grow the abilities of nearly 100 of our employees. You will learn how they gained improved self-understanding of their personal strengths and weaknesses, identified opportunities, improved their leadership abilities, and added new skills for their leadership effectiveness. Catalyst Consulting has worked with the Lakewood Board of Education, First Federal of Lakewood, Lakewood Congregational Church, as well as hundreds of organizations across the world. So I ask Leslie Yerkes to join us at the podium and share the experience of the development that she has led. Thank you, Leslie, for being here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. The only challenge I have this evening is keeping it brief, as I am a storyteller and the stories in this organization are abundant. I come here before you because I'd like to tell you a very small story of the energy that has been invested in the people of your organization. I have been around the city of Lakewood municipal government working only with people because that's my only expertise, people and process. The initiatives initially were small, an occasional assessment for hiring, a mediation situation, a coaching situation. One of your lean teams, after a significant amount of work, identified that the performance review process that was being utilized was underutilized and perhaps ineffective, not because it was a bad system, but because systems like this are used variably by different people, some good, some not so good, and some not at all. And so it in fact wasn't doing what it was set out to do. So the lean team made the strong recommendation that we should not have this formal process. But you don't take away the one formal time of year when an employee gets feedback from their manager about how they're aligning with objectives. So it wasn't let go of something for nothing, it was let go of something for something much better. I came back with a strong recommendation, and I required that your human resource director read a book called Abolish Performance Reviews that had a lot of data that said they're ineffectual across the board, but the most important thing that someone who's giving direction to another human being is that they have real conversations on a regular basis. So the decision was made that we're going to replace a formal, once-a-year piece of paper in their HR file with the minimum expectation of a quarterly conversation. We identified all the people who had direct reports. We asked them to participate in 4 workshops of what are we letting go of, what are we moving towards, how do you do this, what does a good conversation look like, what should the content. We did this for 100% of your managerial workforce. We were not necessarily requiring that police or fire participate, but I want you to know that they voluntarily participated and jumped in with both of their legs. And at the end of that time, we adopted quarterly conversations. I have met with your entire workforce twice, 2 Januaries with round-the-clock meetings to find out, initially to introduce this to them and say what would make this a valuable activity, what's a good conversation with your manager, what do you need, and they gave feedback and helped us to tweak the process. I met with them in the second year to find out, are you having these conversations? What's the benefit of these conversations? What's the best of these conversations? How could we improve? So I have met almost every one of your 450 plus full-time employees. I want to let you know that they're proud, that they like their jobs, they understand their job description. They would always love more training. They would, of course, love more recognition, but they're very satisfied and at the time, occasionally frustrated because they can't do their job as well, but they identify the places where they can't and problem solve those. As a result of this initiative, it was identified that we, municipalities and other organizations, don't develop people as managers. And all of the data nationally tells us the #1 best way to influence your organization, its performance and its morale, is invest in your managers. Good managers help to grow organizations. So over 4 years ago, this organization set aside the funds that each manager would participate in a 6-day, over 6-month series that included emotional intelligence taught by the faculty of Case Western Reserve. We started with one cohort with the vision that we would do about 12 or 15 people in the fall and the spring until we did everyone. I want to let you know right now we have cohorts 6 and 7 running. We have reached through the entire organization. We are now doing team leaders, group leaders, high potentials. We have trained 106 individuals within this organization, 1/4 of your workforce. Some of the special things tonight as I stood here, and it was really hard not to cry, that video was remarkable. Ron Brunner sat through a full day of training today with Ellen Burtz-Cooper adding to his management toolkit, and I did not know this about this man. And so it's like, shooey booey, you went through a whole day on emotional intelligence and you probably could teach us a thing or two. One of your firefighters who went through the cohort, we are up to 6 and 7 now. We thought we'd do 4, we did 6 and 7, wrote me a personal note about 2 months ago because he secured the advancement that he aspired to. And when I met this gentleman, I knew he was one of those folks that would always be in leadership. Your fire department has just gone through a lot of leadership succession. I have had the privilege to have each of your leaders of the fire in this session, and every one of them taking advantage of the opportunity to go through a 360-degree assessment on emotional intelligence, use that tool, that opportunity for coaching, to explore how much they wanted and what career path they wanted in this fire department. You have the deepest bench of leadership in your fire department of any fire department in probably Northeast Ohio, let alone Ohio. It's remarkable. I wanted to let you know the stories are abundant. I turned to look here at Tony. You have so many people that are so well-intended, hardworking, and now, by the way, formally trained in stuff that you don't learn unless someone trains you in it. But I've had a personal touch with human resources over the last year because I have a friend who has dementia and has no family in this area and lives in Lakewood, and she's been on Tony's top 10 list for over a year. And on Friday, when I was doing the one-on-one with her caseworker in this back room here, the caseworker said, we can't do my one-on-one coaching session because her water's going to be turned off on Wednesday. The train wreck that I was worried about is happening, so instead we used an hour to troubleshoot this. Not only did a caseworker, social worker get involved, your assistant director of human services, your director of human services. Later that day, I had a one-on-one with someone from water who has since looked up the property, told me what's wrong. Today, he pulled it up on Zillow for me so I could look at it differently. It's because all these people are coming together around the citizens of this organization in a remarkable way. The highlights are profound. Today, during our workshop, one of the individuals who missed his one-on-one grabbed me at lunchtime and said, can I have my coaching now? He's worked for you for 31 years. He is an African-American face. He said there's not many within our organization. When I asked him how many more years would he be giving his service, because this man is a leader. He is a team leader. And I asked him the definition of leadership management and what does it mean on a daily basis to be a worker bee. And his answers were better than any faculty member I've ever met at Case, and terribly authentic and sincere. But he sort of told me his life plan and his career plan because I thought, this gentleman is a gem. And I made one and only one request of him, and I said, as you think about the final years that you were in service here, will your legacy please be that you lift up everybody around you and everyone you meet, you make as strong and competent as you are? He said, that was never done for me because that's not what managers did when I was coming up through the ranks. But he said, Leslie, that's my plan. I want to let you know that you have, and I have the opportunity to look at workforces literally throughout the United States and around the world. You have one of the finest, strongest, most dedicated group of employees that I've ever seen. They have appreciated and valued the investment that you've made in them. They very much would like these kinds of activities to continue, and we have already some gratis gifts that will be given to this organization in 2020. The university has done 3 appreciative inquiries for public works, for building and housing, and for fire, and they are gifting to the police department in January. I want to tell you internally, you have so many people like the CIT training, fire gets a lot of training, so many wise people that have so much that I think, quite honestly, we have enough content to work from the people who work here and continue a series like this into the future. So I wanted you to know that there has been a long-term dedication to growing folks, and they're pretty remarkable. I will always be available to you as counsel to answer any of your questions about what's been done in the past and the kinds of things that they're going to keep on going.
Leslie, would you please just mention some of the faculty who are involved in
Yeah.
this program?
So session number 1 is Dr. Melvin Smith, who, by the way, has his first and ever brand new book out. He's in the field of emotional intelligence, and he always teaches this because Melvin, in my opinion, is one of the most researched and strongest and also most authentic. Our own Maureen Bach up here has gotten the assessment that follows. It's called the ESCI, the Emotional Social Competency Inventory. Individuals that participate, once they learn the framework of emotional intelligence, go through this 360 where they ask themselves their managers, their direct reports, their peers, and others to give them feedback on these 12 competencies and behaviors. That feedback is provided to them, and then they each get a coaching session. And my mantra is, once I'm your coach, I'm always your coach. So anybody can call upon for anything, for resources, tips, and techniques. I sort of feel like I'm looking at family members here because each and every one of these people sitting at these tables has been through this. We started with directors because you don't start at the bottom, you start at the top, so the language and the understanding and the support is there. It is followed then by Ellen Burtz-Cooper, who also teaches at Case. We are using her facility on East 40th. It is very comfortable, and everybody loves this place. Ellen teaches 2 sessions. She does one called the Managerial Toolkit that has lots of things, and that was today, and it will be again on Thursday. And we will be going back to our loft and learning about stress and wellness and balance. At the end of the series, we have Dr. Mark Chupp, who teaches us about difficult situations and difficult people and navigating through conflict with great emotional intelligence. It doesn't ever stop there. Every other month, your managers circle up in this room, and they will be doing that tomorrow morning. They use a portion of this time for speaking and talking about these important coaching conversations. So occasionally they're assigned a book to read, articles come out. We don't ever think that the learning has to stop once you've been through the series. In fact, our expectation is your learning will continue, your coaching will continue, and you will mentor a lot of others.
I've become very fond of the notion that culture eats strategy for lunch. And what we've been able to invest in is a culture that will sustain service to our citizens. And we helped by good strategy, but the good news is culture does eat strategy for lunch. So I would, Council President, perhaps give the opportunity if you have questions or thoughts.
Sure, absolutely. We'll open up the floor for any questions from council members. Councilmember Litton. And thank you, of course, Ms. Yerkes, for being here today.
Pleasure.
Yes, thank you. I don't necessarily have questions. I want to just acknowledge how much I appreciate that this process has occurred in our city. I think, government and the big B bureaucracy gets a bad rap sometimes. And if only people knew the amount to which our people here in Lakewood are investing in themselves, they might have a little bit different perception. And I think that different perception happens because of this culture that then goes out and serves our public. Not all managers are leaders, not all leaders are managers. So I like that this is something that kind of is pervasive throughout the organization. We never stop learning. And I just want to add, and I mean this in all seriousness, that I hope both of our mayoral candidates were listening intently to this, because it is something that I would hope as a hopefully continuing council member to that we continue as a city. Because maintaining a culture is something we have to work at every single day.
Cultures are very fragile. I learned this at one of my clients when they were acquired, and we had 4 years of this kind of developmental investment. And the minute the acquiring came in with a different culture, they thought they no longer had permission to be the way they had worked so hard to become, which, by the way, made them the best in class in the world. And they let it go. And at the same time, because they didn't want to work for a culture that was different than the one they'd co-created, we then were struggling to retain talent. So this is about attracting, retaining, growing, developing, and building capacity. And I want to tell you, people did not come to this process resistant. And those that came because they didn't quite know what they were getting into, once they saw it and had the explanation, they all respond with a big thank you. Thank you for investing in us.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other council members? Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Mr. President. Thanks to the mayor and to the HR director for guiding us in this, and Ms. Yerkes for the fascinating and account of all the valuable work that you've been leading. So it's been 4 years or more?
4 or 5, yeah.
Okay.
At least, possibly even 6, starting with little things. But this dedicated effort has been about 3 years of dedicated effort.
That's wonderful, and I'm sure it will result in better customer service, continuous improvement for customer service for the citizens. That's something that City Council is frequently on the front lines of, is hearing one step in a long chain of events, but we're always keyed in on improving customer service. I think you answered one of the questions I was going to ask, which was if we were to stop this, what happens?
Yeah.
I want to support the suggestion that Councilman Litton just made, which is that it's going to be important for the new administration. We've got two council colleagues here putting forward their leadership to the voters. Somebody will win, somebody will be faced with this, and I've got to see, attending one lean training, just an introductory look, the depth and thoughtfulness of what goes into a lean training, which is different than
But
this.
parallel and meant to dovetail. One of the things I want you to know is a very strange thing happens in transition, is that in transition there's a place called limbo, and in limbo, people think all the stuff they're supposed to do sort of kind of goes away. So when we were doing the coaching conversations training, the mayor attended and stopped in for each of the employee round-the-clock meetings that I was doing, and he had a funny position because they were sort of doubtful in the beginning of what are we doing and why are we doing this, and we didn't like the performance review process, but is anybody really going to do this well? A year later, the story was a little bit different and continues to be better. But Mike Summers stood in front of them and says, change isn't easy, and it takes a long, long time. And I got over here as the other side of the bookend and said, this doesn't have to be hard because this is common sense and should become common practice and is the natural way to make relationship, and it can happen overnight if you do it. The thing I'd like you to know is we have now about 75 to 80% of our managers doing regular, authentic, and meaningful coaching conversations with their entire workforce. The minute we stop paying attention to that and asking them to do that, it will go away, and it goes away not because they're not good people and well-intended, but they're busy. And this is a hard-won habit. So on one hand, he's right. It takes a long time, and it isn't easy. That's because change doesn't take for lots of time. On the other hand, I'll tell you, it doesn't have to be hard, and it can happen overnight. We could lose it overnight if we don't choose to put the same emphasis on it. And that's just emphasis and saying this is important. Let's keep it up. They need to hear from you that all the things they're doing continue on. The good stuff continues. That's just the message they need to hear.
Two quick follow-ups. One thought that occurs to me after the wonderful presentation from the police department tonight is City Council perhaps ought to make a habit every second month of recognizing standout employees from other departments. It's good for us to hear. It was actually gratifying and wonderful to learn about what's happening on the front lines. You don't always hear or see about, and I'm sure it can have a beneficial effect on the performance. The other thing I know, I'm looking always to make an impact on the community, get things done. We can't get things done just by passing laws alone, so we need to have a team that can work efficiently and effectively. So this is deep in the weeds. Final thing is, are city council members allowed to take emotional intelligence indexes and ask for 360-degree
would
feedback?
I love that you would decide. I've taught leadership now for 35 years. It is my passion. It's the #1 most important ingredient to organization health. And emotional intelligence is the best framework out there. So I would love if you would consider as a council to either have Melvin Smith in or come to case in one of our executive ed. And then I would be happy to deploy the emotional social competency inventory. So I think it would be one of the healthiest and wisest things you could do. That would be totally cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Hearing none. Thank you again so much for the presentation, and that was a lot of really thoughtful information and a lot to reflect on, and we really appreciate the opportunity to learn more about the fantastic investment that has been going on in the city's people. I think it's, oftentimes when we're looking at the budget or, a purchasing contract or something like that, we think in terms of investment in equipment or physical structures, et cetera, and it's incredibly important that we're also mindful of the tremendous investment that is going on in the people who are doing the work for the city. So thank you. Move to receive and file. Mayor, did you have anything else? Okay. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes. And that brings us to the top of our agenda.
Item 1, Committee of the Whole report regarding meeting held September 30th, 2019.
Thank you. I will not belabor the points verbally, but refer you to my written communication. Committee of the Whole did meet on September 30th. Essentially, two topics of discussion. One are the resolutions, the substitute resolutions that immediately follow this communication, being the appointments to the Tree Education Advisory Board. The other being a very substantive conversation about the investments in the new Senior and Community Center and Cove Church. I think we'll have some more discussion on that later in the docket. There's another docket item that appears further down. So again, I'll refer to the communication, move to receive and file that report. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 2, substitute resolution 90-9019, a resolution appointing Laura Ballier to the Tree Advisory and Education Board for a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2020.
Thank you. And I believe a motion to substitute is required. Law Director Butler? Or since it's printed on the docket, are we good? Okay. All right. Then I will simply move to adopt.
Second.
That motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes.
Item 3, substitute resolution 90-9119, a resolution appointing Mark Dan to the Tree Advisory and Education Board for a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2021.
Move to adopt. That motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion to adopt? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 4, substitute resolution 90-9219, a resolution appointing Linda Grandstaff to the Tree Advisory and Education Board for a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2022.
Move to adopt.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion to adopt? Yes, Councilman Litton.
I just want to affirm that we've shared other potential appointees with the mayor, and that. All right. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt 90-9219? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 5, Public Safety Committee report regarding meeting held September 23rd, 2019.
Chairman Bullock. I'm sorry. Yeah, Chairman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your colleagues and members of the Public Safety Committee met on September 23rd with all members present, along with members of the administration's law and planning departments and additional members of the public. The committee discussed a communication from Director Sylvester regarding the Cuyahoga County Bicycle and Scooter Share Program, which appeared on the September 3rd docket. Members of the committee expressed their concerns regarding safety, but also considered their potential benefit in bringing residents and visitors into the non-car transportation system. Various use cases and potential failure items of the program were also reviewed. Planning Department staff David Boss and Caitlin Milius, who both did an excellent job, by the way, gave a presentation to the committee that presented data on e-scooter and e-bike usage and traffic incidents, highlighting their use in Columbus, in Portland, in Austin, and Los Angeles. Generally, the data indicates that e-scooter trips are a mile in length or less, and that a majority of ER visits resulting from them come from people simply falling off, as opposed to crashes with traffic or pedestrians, and that they serve as a means to attract people to alternative forms of transportation. Planning staff also spent time reviewing the specifics of the county's bicycle and scooter share program with the committee. The 4 vendors licensed to operate in the county's pilot program for 1 year include Bird, Lime, Spin, and VO Ride. Any municipality that elects to enter the program does so under the county's rules established by its contract, its memorandum of understanding with those vendors, and also has the option of providing further regulation and specificity to how those scooters and bikes may operate in the form of an ordinance. E-scooter use in Cleveland was analyzed to provide more local insight into what the program might look like in Lakewood. Members of the committee expressed a desire to update the traffic code as a first step while considering this issue, so I made a motion seconded by Councilman Litton for the administration to consider a traffic code update to incorporate regulation for e-bikes and scooters. All members voted in favor of the motion, and it passed. Though, through discussions with the planning department, it was found that not only can these devices be regulated with code, but also through geofencing technology and the establishment of incentivized parking stations. Through the company's use of technology, e-scooter speeds can be limited and devices can be locked from traveling on dangerous thoroughfares such as highways, for example. It was noted that e-scooter companies often provide discounts for parking in designated stations once a user has completed the trip. They also pay individuals to regularly collect and redistribute scooters to parking stations to keep sidewalks clear. The Planning Department is in the process of coordinating with vendors to come to the committee's next meeting on the topic, we hope later in October, where a demonstration of the technology will be held. Move to receive and file this report.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 6, Housing Committee report regarding meeting held September 23rd, 2019.
Chairman Anderson.
Yes, the Housing Committee met on September 23rd with all members present along with other members of council, members of the administration's building department, representatives of WXZ Development, and a couple members of the public. After thorough discussion and consideration, the Housing Committee recommended Resolution 9093-19, which grants a $100,000 rebate to WXZ Development on completion of necessary environmental remediation at its Lake Avenue Homes development site. So I appreciate the work of the committee on that recommendation. The committee then deliberated on a communication from Councilwoman George regarding demolition and a rebuild of homes in Lakewood. The members of the committee pledged additional discussion, which is being scheduled, I believe, for next week or possibly later on in October, early November. The committee then focused the discussion on Ordinance 1819, which seeks to acquire contractors registered with the city to receive a training or orientation to be provided by the city. Again, robust discussion with the Housing Department and another pledge for additional discussion at a forthcoming Housing Committee. Lastly, the committee approved the minutes from its last meeting of July 22. Motion to receive and file this oral report.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file that Housing Committee report? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 7, Resolution 9093-19, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into an agreement with WXZ Residential Group, Lakewood LLC, for an economic development grant issued in the form of a single rebate for a total amount not to exceed $100,000 in order to assist the grantee in preparing the site for residential development.
Thank you. Those who've been following this process will recall the evolution of this discussion. I believe we are joined here this evening by Mr. Weimer. Thank you for joining us. And I just wanted to move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? Yes, Councilman Litton.
I just want to affirm, I see the word rebate in there. I was not at the Housing Committee meeting. Just want to affirm that this is to be paid only once the site is officially abated.
Yes, Director Sylvester.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adoption say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 8, Finance Committee report regarding meeting held October 7, 2019.
Thank you. Chairman O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met this evening and discussed the council budget priority process. We reviewed some items that had not been previously discussed, and in particular gave a good deal of attention to the item related to hiring an organizer, a block club and community organizer. It's appeared to be the sentiment of the committee that we would keep that included in this resolution. A good deal of discretion would be given, of course, to the next council and the next mayor in terms of how that priority is realized. Remaining items were given an overview, and for the discussion, we also approved the minutes from our previous meeting. We voted to recommend adoption of the ordinance, or excuse me, the resolution that follows this item. That concludes my report.
Move to receive and file that report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Yes, Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Mr. President. I just want to compliment the Finance Committee Chair on leading us through another year of council budget priorities deliberations, and to all all council members for putting forth a lot of thoughtful, creative ideas, and also showing responsive attention to resident needs that we all encounter in our travels. I appreciate that we're working hard to get problems solved together. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comment on the motion to receive and file? I'm sorry. Oh, yes, motion to receive and file the report. Any additional comment? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 9, Resolution 909619, a resolution to formally identify agreed-upon priorities that council would like to see reflected in the 2020 budget.
Move to substitute.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to substitute? Hearing none. Madam Clerk.
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock? Yes. George?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley? Rader?
Yes.
That motion passes. Move to adopt. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt?
Mr. President.
Yes, Councilman Rader.
I just wanted to note, had a conversation with Mr. Bullock after the meeting, and it really does seem to me the council, if there's a theme for this year's, there's no real theme, there's a lot of things going on, but I think sustainability is a big focus, and I know that'll be a big focus of the next mayor, and I think both candidates have stated their enthusiasm towards creating a more sustainable city, a more sustainable environment for our residents. So I just wanted to commend both the committee and the chair, and Councilman Bullock, Councilman O'Leary, Councilwoman George, for your leadership. I think we're building on the successes, and we'll be. I'm just excited about 2020 and getting to work on these things and building on the successes from the previous administration and the strides they've made in a lot of areas to help our environment. So thank you, and look forward to it.
You're here. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 10, Rules and Ordinances Committee report regarding meeting held October 7, 2019.
Chairwoman George.
Thank you. The Rules and Ordinances Committee met this evening to discuss two ordinances. The first one was Ordinance 16-19, enacting a new chapter for public records access. We did get an update from the Law Department that agreement has been signed with Next Request, which will be a public records portal that should be up and running by the end of the year. We also had a pretty thorough discussion on the ordinance itself. It does need some work still, some updating from the Law Department, so we're going to meet probably one more time in Rules and Ordinances on this ordinance. The second one we met on was Ordinance 25-19, enacting an animals, all dogs in a park will be registered with the county fiscal officer and wear a registration tag. We had a thorough discussion. It concluded with Councilman Anderson saying that he thought maybe a resolution would be a better fit rather than an ordinance, and he was going to come back to the committee with a resolution. So we will be discussing both of those ordinances in an upcoming Rules and Ordinances Committee meeting. So motion to receive and file this communication.
Thank you. Second, and any further discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 11, Ordinance 1619, an ordinance enacting new Chapter 110, Access Public Records of the Codified Ordinances to create transparency and timely ease of access to public records and set requirements for the city's online public records request system.
Move to defer. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 12, Ordinance 2519, an ordinance repealing 90507 animals and enacting a new 90507 animals, which requires that all dogs in any park be registered with the county fiscal officer and wear a registration tag.
Move to defer. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 13, Resolution 908019, a resolution authorizing the mayor and director of law to enter into a purchase agreement with Emerald Light Investments, Ltd., an Ohio limited liability company owner of the property located at 18100 Detroit Avenue, and to execute all documents necessary to effectuate the purchase and sale according to the terms of that agreement.
Thank you. This one calls for just a bit of decoding. Emerald Light Investments is the entity that holds the Donato's Pizza property over on West Clifton and Detroit. The city is not getting into the pizza business, but we are acquiring a portion of that land for improvements, improvements to our firehouse, which is located adjacent to that, and specifically to provide for additional space for storage of equipment that is unfortunately often contaminated with carcinogenic material, and by storing that in an area that our firefighters don't come into regular contact with it, and they can be isolated and cleaned, we should be able to make some serious strides in keeping our firefighters healthy and safe long-term. So I will move to substitute.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to substitute? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock? George?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley? Rader?
Yes.
That motion passes. Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock? George?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley? Rader?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes.
Item 14, ordinance 2619, an ordinance to approve the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances and to provide for the publication of such new matter.
Thank you. This ordinance simply updates our code to reflect all the changes that we've made in the previous quarter. It is on second reading this evening, so I'll move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 17, communication from Councilmember Bullock regarding Midwest Green Transportation Forum and Expo.
Thank you. Councilman Rader. I'm sorry, Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, I recently attended the 2019 Midwest Green Transportation Forum and Expo in Columbus to learn about the latest in clean fuels and vehicles that are hitting the market, as well as advanced transportation topics such as connected and autonomous vehicles. The conference provided many learning opportunities, and it was excellent, and I recommend it to everyone next year. It wasn't expensive, and there was capacity in the city council budget, and at the invitation of the council clerk, I formalized a report so that we have something for the record to show the value of the council travel and training budget. So this communication is my report, as well as a placeholder for deliberation on any steps that we might take. There are a number of trends to share. Number one, the acronym ACES summarizes a constellation of advanced transportation trends: autonomous, connected, electric, and shared. In addition to emissions reductions, the anticipated benefits include lower costs, superior coordination, and new efficiencies. The scooter and e-bike proposals are examples of some of, or several of those, not autonomous, but several. Micromobility is a fast emerging trend. An example of this is, again, the scooters. Electric vehicle adoption is expanding rapidly. There are already more than 60 million electric vehicles on the road today, and this number will more than double by 2025, which is right around the corner. New car sales worldwide are projected to be 55% by 2040 for electric vehicles. Some findings. On top of fuel costs, these are findings to me as a generalist. It's probably less groundbreaking to James Holman, our fleet director, who was able to join me for one of the days at the conference. But on top of fuel cost savings, idle reductions and switching away from diesel and gasoline can produce significant savings in maintenance. And that was a very key point I learned. Lakewood has short distances and moderate speeds, and that makes this trend even more so, because when you drive at low speeds, the fuel doesn't burn cleanly, it gunks up your engine and it pollutes the air. And it raises our maintenance difficulties and costs. Our fleet could adopt a two-pronged strategy: purchase clean technology for new vehicles, and for our existing vehicles, while we're still using them for useful life, we could retrofit with anti-idling systems, which are very cost-effective, $4,000 or less a piece. The technology is improved, can be moved from vehicle to vehicle, and we would gain back those costs in fuel and maintenance savings, not to mention emissions gains, staff time savings. Our metric for measuring progress, and this is a breakthrough for me, should be based on conventional fuel displaced from a business-as-usual case, rather than how I had been thinking about it, how many electric vehicles or alternative vehicles do we have in our fleet. What you can do instead is to measure displacement of the conventional fuel, and in fact, there is a certification that this Clean Fuels Ohio statewide association uses with that metric. Our city attracted a high level of interest from a lot of the people attending the conference because we're viewed as early adopters, or getting to be an early adopter in Northeast Ohio, which so far lags Central Ohio, which has a lot of progress to point to, thanks to the City of Columbus and also a national grant that they won. And that's the next point. The state of Ohio is a national leader in field testing connected and autonomous vehicles, and that is not just the vehicle that drives around, but the stationary hardware that, a little bit like the broadband that we installed in the city of Lakewood, but then there's telekinetics that have to go on various poles. They're putting that in the city of Dublin and other places already. In fact, they have a fantastic presentation that they delivered, which is very thought-provoking and will give them all kinds of new capabilities for planning, for parking management, for congestion reduction. It's a quantum leap forward. Some of Ohio is on the leading edge of this. We ought to understand the trends of that and how that relates to our own fleet management and our own city planning processes. There are opportunities. Early adoption of electric vehicles could lead to early adoption of autonomous and connected vehicles. Those are different, but they are closely correlated. Early adoption could also position Lakewood for successful grant applications to Ohio EPA and ODOT. EPA has money. They're looking for a rational and thoughtful and high-impact way to invest that money at the passenger vehicle and the medium and heavy-duty vehicle layer. So far, that money has gone to giant things like tugs and locomotives, and tugboats and airport tugs, where they get a lot of air emissions reduction for each dollar invested. So we could position ourselves to apply successfully for some state money to reduce our costs if we're looking ahead. Long term, use of smart transportation could result in parking and traffic efficiencies and mode shift away from single occupancy automobiles that reduces the externalities, the costs that we don't normally account for: parking, congestion, emissions, and health impacts. I know that the mayor is working hard with a Healthy Lakewood committee, and there was a quote that stuck in my mind that Shannon Strachan put on screen when I got to attend one of those sessions, and that is, health happens in neighborhoods. And that's really true. We're not trying to have health happen under a surgeon's knife in a hospital. We're trying to go upstream and create healthy conditions. So if we can have clean trucks that don't deliver diesel emissions at your doorstep every day, as we do right now, that is a major investment towards health happening in neighborhoods. We have some, but we could do even better there. In fact, we could also do low-cost things like electric-powered yard tools, which are not expensive, which are conventional technology, and the small amounts of fuel burn kick out disproportionate amounts of asthma-causing unhealthy air pollution because there's no emissions protections on those little single-cycle tools. And our fleet director maintains the yard tools used in the Parks Department, as well as the big trucks and everything else. Finally, action items. Pilot anti-idling systems for potential broader use. I believe that darn near every vehicle in our fleet could make use of this. Second, especially on the diesel side, and the public safety side, where we have commonly a lot of systems in those public safety vehicles that have to operate for good reasons. Right now, the only option has been to run that engine, but there are systems now that can reduce or eliminate the engine running and keep operations unaffected and save us money and improve the health of the community. Second, we should learn about all electric heavy-duty vehicles for potential acquisition, such as the nation's first all-electric automated side loader refuse truck, which is about to be delivered to Albany, New York, in a matter of a couple months. This is brand new. Earlier this year, they had a rear loader from a couple other companies. I've been learning about this, but the cost is not high, so I've got some data we can share on that compared to a lot of other options. Third, we should continue learning about electric charging infrastructure to expand options available to the city and to private property owners in Lakewood. And there are a lot of private, not all of that is city. Much of that, in fact, should be private property owners, whether commercial or multifamily or otherwise. But the city ought to understand it and facilitate it and help plan thoughtfully around it. Fourth, we ought to join Clean Fuels Ohio as a dues-paying member, which would give us access for a song to the consulting services. We've invested in some fee-for-service already, but we frankly have been already using their services de facto. We could benefit even more. And finally, number 5, we should develop a strategy to attain a Green Fleet certification from Clean Fuels Ohio in the near future, a designation that's based on conventional fuel displaced from a business-as-usual operations case. We already use some biodiesel. That would count as an example. There's no equipment there. It's just replacing a conventional fuel. We're already doing that in the warm months. The question is whether we could also do some of that in the cold weather months. But there's a lot there. So I was excited. I came away with a sense of possibility because we've done a certain amount of analysis and found that engaging in this space is complex, could be expensive, and we need to get a clear sense of direction. What I think I came away learning is that's true, but there's also a path forward, and there's a couple of very exciting options, and I think Lakewood could really be the first in Northeast Ohio and first in the state in some things, and really continue to show smart government, healthy government, clean government, technology-assisted government to our peer communities and to our citizens. Move to receive and file and refer this to the Public Works Committee.
Second. A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 18, communication from Councilmember Rader regarding appointment to Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board.
Okay, now Councilman Rader.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure to inform you that I am officially reappointing Cassie Gaffney to the Animal Welfare Safety Advisory Board. Her term had expired. She was appointed just recently to a term that had just expired, so we're going to go ahead and give her another 2 years. She's been doing a great job the couple of meetings we've been at. So move to receive and file as communication.
Second. A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 21, communication from Mayor Summers regarding a resolution authorizing the issuance of a design-build RFQ for the adaptive reuse of Cove Church.
Thank you, Mayor Summers. And this is the topic that I teased earlier in my Committee of the Whole report.
Thank you, President Leary, members of council, members of the audience. We met last week for an hour and a half discussing the approach that we'd like to consider, and we introduced the concept of the design-build approach. Tonight, we introduce a draft of an RFQ, a request for qualifications of such a partner. This draft has been developed by Allison. Allison's in the back row. We worked with Allison last week. The draft, I think, that's before us is about 90% complete, so it needs further work. But we wanted to get this in front of you to begin to move in parallel, as we discussed last week, with these concepts. They're complex. I think we need to continue to work together to understand the issues and share information and figure out how we're going to make these investments long term. So actually, when we left last week, I didn't necessarily have this clarity that we would introduce this as a parallel track, but in discussions afterwards, we decided that the RFQ was ready to be considered, and it would be a great way for you to become familiar with it. This will give you more time to do so. So as you know, there's no hard deadline, but the sooner we can get information in front of you, we want to do that. And tonight's action attempts to do just that sharing. So I would ask that you would refer this draft RFQ to the appropriate committee for further discussion.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 22, Resolution 909719, a resolution authorizing the mayor, the director of public works, the director of law, the director of finance, and purchasing manager to establish procedures for and engage in the process of letting of one or more contracts with one or more qualified entities for design and construction for the repurposing of Cove Church without the necessity of competitive bidding and exempting the city from certain provisions within Ohio Revised Code related to design-build contracting for the purpose of this project.
Thank you. Move to refer to committee of the whole. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to refer to committee of the whole?
Mr. Chair, Mr. President?
Yes, Councilman Rader.
What's the timeline on this? I'm sorry, I think we might have mentioned it in the meeting. How many meetings you plan to have, and when do you need this to be sort of vetted and approved?
Well, it's a great question. There isn't a hard deadline, but we know that a delay will likely incur costs of materials and labor. So we're thinking about a project that, if we really worked well, could maybe come online in 2021. So we're thinking really long-term here, and as a consequence, the sooner we can get at it, the better. So our hope is that we might be able to float this RFQ to see what the market results might look like. So the process really is we come to an agreement that the RFQ seeks the right kind of qualities. We issue it to the marketplace. We get responses. We evaluate those responses. And ultimately, hopefully, get clarity as to who that partner would likely look like. We share all that, we do that together. We come to an agreement of who the partner is. We would then enter into negotiations for a development agreement, just like we did with One Lakewood Place. That could take a while. And that development agreement then would have to be approved by City Council. And once that agreement is all developed and approved and signed, then we begin the actual implementation of the project itself. And through all of those discussions, we should have a fairly clear outcome in mind. And that's why I think by starting and working together, we'll have some clarity. And the hope is that we can work together with a contractor and a partner that can help us gain speed of the project, perhaps reduce costs, maybe identify functionality of the building that will be simpler and less expensive, but just as profound, so that we can actually get there sooner and better. That's the hope, but we're not sure of that. You know, when you begin, anybody who's hired a contractor on a complex job such as a kitchen, you know there's lots of variables and surprises, and whatever you thought it might be, oftentimes it's different because you change your mind. That might be appropriate, but we want to work together on this. So to answer your question is, it would be really a terrific outcome if we could send this RFQ in 2019 to the public or to the marketplace.
And Councilman Rader, I guess, in addition to that, I would envision probably at least 2 more meetings on this RFQ. And obviously that's amenable to whatever council's appetite for further discussion is, but I would envision it taking at least a couple more meetings. Thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to receive and file the mayor's communication? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 23, communication from Director Gelsomino regarding Title III of the Older Americans Act 2020 to 2021 proposal.
Thank you. And Director Gelsomino, I'm sorry, I just, as a matter of housekeeping, have to correct myself that the previous motion was the motion to refer the resolution to committee of the whole, as we had already moved to receive and file the mayor's communication. Sorry about that. Director Gelsomino.
Dear members of council, the Department of Human Services Division of Aging will be submitting a proposal to the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging for Title III funding, which will support ongoing community-based senior services for the 2020-21 program years. This RFP must be submitted by October 18th, 2019. Therefore, I have attached for your consideration an emergency resolution authorizing the mayor, a resolution authorizing the mayor or designee to submit the proposal, a requirement of the request for proposal, and to enter into a contract for services upon receipt of the grant award. The Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging has been our valued partner for over 40 years. particularly in the areas of senior nutrition and transportation. In 2019, the Division of Aging will serve approximately 17,284 congregate meals. They will deliver 27,195 home-delivered meals, and they will provide 8,454 one-way trips with Title III program support. They are a critical partner for our services. I respectfully request your approval to meet the October 18th, 2019 proposal application deadline. Sincerely.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 24, Resolution 909819, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and enter into an agreement with the Western Reserve Area Agency on Aging for Title III of the Older Americans Act, Senior Community Services for the 2020-2021 program years.
Thank you. And Director Gelsomino, did I hear that we're being requested to pass this evening, or?
Yes,
Yes,
we are.
that's
I'm
it, yeah.
sorry. That
Yep.
it came out and it fell right in between all of the meetings scheduled for
Yes,
council.
as they often do. So I will move to adopt.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? I obviously acknowledge that this is incredibly important funding for our community, and as Director Gelsomino mentioned, really provides a lot of critical services for those who are among the most vulnerable in our community. So any additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 25, communication from Director Pay regarding amended 2019 purchasing and contracting authority.
Thank you. Director Pay.
Thank you. Dear members of council, requesting an increase in contracting authority as detailed in the correspondence. Please refer to finance for further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that communication. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? There being none opposed, that motion passes.
Item 26, Ordinance 5018B, an ordinance amending Ordinance 5018A adopted May 20th, 2019, authorizing the mayor, the director of public works, the director of law, the director of finance, and/or purchasing manager to enter into contracts for professional services and to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the purchase of repair, maintenance, and operating supplies, services, and equipment as authorized by the 2019 appropriation ordinance and the administrative code of the city with the lowest and best bidder or bidders or as otherwise provided by law.
Move to refer to finance.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to refer to finance? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 27, communication from Director Sylvester regarding authority to sell real property located at 2117 Robin Avenue.
Thank you. Director Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of council, I'm requesting reauthorization to list and sell the city-owned property at 2117 Robin Avenue, one of the two city-owned new single-family homes in Birdtown, constructed using federal home funds. We ran into a federal regulation related to somebody trying to go through first-time home buyer program, this property being a condo, and the city also managing the construction at this property. We were able to work through that federal regulation. That took us a little bit of time. Unfortunately, we lost the buyer that was going to buy this property during that period. So I'm asking for support to put this back on the market as soon as we can. We have a deadline to sell the property by January 26th of 2020, which essentially gives us about 3 months. I'm very confident that we can find another buyer for this, and like I said, we were able to work through a regulatory issue that we hadn't dealt with before because the building is a condo, and we had all these things kind of colliding. So we bring this to you tonight, looking for your support. If possible, Mr. President, we would ask for approval tonight just so we can get it back on the market, and I'd be happy to answer any questions this evening.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and duly note that while it's unusual for us to pass measures on first reading, this one is a little bit of a misnomer, seeing as how we've already read it 3 times previously and passed it before, in essence. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file?
President.
Yes, Councilman O'Malley.
I support passing this ordinance on first reading this evening. Certainly familiar with this property, and Councilman Rader and I were actively involved with Mary Lee and recalled that there was another very well-qualified applicant. It was an extraordinarily difficult decision, I'm sure. And given the time parameters and the fact that there are other qualified potential homeowners and the fact that the cold weather season is coming and you know the way real estate works in seasonally, I'd certainly support getting this back on the market as soon as possible.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to receive and file the communication? We usually have folks sign in. I will allow a comment if you have a brief comment.
My name is Billy Fronimo, Lakewood resident. I wasn't even planning to speak on this topic, but I actually have a rental house right next to an affordable housing house that just recently sold on Lauderdale, and I just want to get my feedback on the program. And I think I spoke with the director before about this, and I don't mean to be insulting, but the affordable housing program, when the city was rehabbing the house, took probably 5-6 months. The finished product was not good. I know there was budgets that were considered. I know there were things that needed to not be done and things that needed to be done. So I wanted to give that feedback before you guys consider opening it up to the market again, maybe opening it up to the market for a non-affordable housing candidate to buy, so that way we can get to the free market and maybe get fixed up. I haven't even looked at this house, but I do know the house that's next to my rental house didn't get fixed up as well as if it was open up to the market, and if a house flipper bought it, he probably would have put a lot more money, a lot more time, and a lot more material into the house, and it would have looked a lot better. So I just wanted to give feedback on the program, and I'm not sure why the housing, the outcome of that house turned out the way it did, but hopefully this one is a little bit different. So that's all.
Thank you. I do appreciate your willingness to share that experience with us tonight. Director Sylvester, you're certainly not obligated to, but if you'd like to make a comment in that vein.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Bill, thanks for being here tonight and sharing some of your comments. We did have an opportunity to speak on Bill's front lawn. So what I'd welcome actually is an opportunity to talk to Bill after this, and he can provide some maybe direct feedback on ways that we can improve without knowing the specifics. It's hard to maybe address on the floor tonight. I will say that we do manage a budget that's tight, and we work very hard to get quality projects done that are affordable. The project that we're talking about tonight is actually new build, constructed by Payne & Payne, who's one of the premier builders really in our region. So I'm very confident in the quality product that's being delivered in Birdtown. Certainly happy to talk to Bill afterwards too about Lauderdale and maybe ways that we can improve. I appreciate the comments.
Thank you. And I would echo that without making it an infomercial, that in my professional experience working in other communities, I have seen Payne & Payne's products brought to bear, and they're usually very high quality and caliber. So, and for those who haven't driven by the project up in Birdtown, take a gander next time you're up there, no pun intended. It's worthwhile to have a look. Any additional discussion on I believe we're still on the motion to receive and file the communication. Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 28, ordinance 2719, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Planning and Development or Mayor to enter into an agreement with a licensed real estate broker to market for sale the real property located at 2117 Robin Avenue for a period of 120 days.
Move to suspend the rules for the purpose of adoption on first reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? Hearing none. Madam Clerk.
Anderson? Yes. Bullock? Yes. George?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
O'Leary?
Yes.
O'Malley? Rader?
Yes.
That motion passes. Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt?
Mr. President.
Yes, Vice President Anderson.
Thank you. I appreciate the Development Department still sort of bird dogging this one. Where would the proceeds go for the sale of the property?
The proceeds will go back to CDBG Home Fund account to then be reinvested in another project, either renovation or new build.
And the real estate agent or agency that's been identified for the sale and listing of this project?
Councilman, I don't have the broker here
All right.
tonight, but happy to provide that to you.
It's already been determined, is it going to be a continuation of the previous broker? or-
Yeah, just because we've built a pipeline of other buyers, we'd like to stick with the broker we've got now.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Anderson?
Yes.
Bullock? George?
Yes.
Litton?
Yes.
Leary?
Sorry, yes.
O'Malley? Rader?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 29, communication from Fire Chief Dunphy regarding Fire Prevention Week 2019.
Thank you, Fire Chief Dunphy. It's his first time. Don't.
Good evening, Council. Attached is the, I don't have that in front of me. Can't see it.
Right behind you, too.
Can I read it from back here?
If you, yeah.
Yes, please find the resolution for your consideration proclaiming October 6th to the 13th, 2019, a Fire Prevention Week. Lakewood Fire Department will be visiting the elementary schools to speak to the children about the importance of having a fire escape plan and demonstrating firefighting equipment. 2019 Fire Prevention Week theme, not every hero wears a cape. Plan and practice your escape effectively serves to remind us the simple actions we can take to stay safe from fire injuries at your home. Thank you, thank you for that, for favorable and timely consideration.
Thank you, and thanks for bearing with us there in the reading. Move to receive and file this communication.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to receive and file? I would just note that for those of us who were up at the Station 1 yesterday for the Fallen Firefighter Memorial and Promotion Ceremony, we did get to hear the winning essay on this theme from a Lincoln Elementary student. And I think I am personally inspired to draw my escape plan. So, no, this is a really important, safety week for the community. And we do regularly have house fires in the city of Lakewood, unfortunately. And we're fortunate to have, such phenomenal support from our fire department. But there's also no substitute for folks being ready and prepared in their own homes. So, any additional discussion, Councilman O'Malley?
Thank you. I thank the new fire chief for bringing this forward, as we do every year. Also want to congratulate him on his new position. He was sworn into yesterday. It's the first time I've missed it in my time on council. I was moving my parents out of our family home of 60 years and just didn't have the time, but want to congratulate him and the new firefighters and other promoted officers as well.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of receiving and filing, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes.
Item 30, Resolution 9095-19, a resolution calling upon citizens of Lakewood to participate in fire prevention activities at home and to heed the message, not every hero wears a cape, plan and practice your escape, as the 2019 Fire Prevention Week theme suggests.
Move to adopt.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adopt? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion passes. That brings us to the end of our docket agenda this evening. We'll have announcements from the administration and council, but first we have two folks who are signed in for our public comment. The first is Eric Pros.
Yeah, I'm just here listening. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining us. Our next speaker signed up is Ms. Olson.
Faye Olson, live on Clifton Boulevard, and probably this will be my swan song here. If I hadn't been misled, back in March, with hang in there, the retractable leash law might be reviewed in October. So if you had just said, this is how it is, you're a big girl, this is how it is, it's not going to be reviewed, or maybe never, I would have just said, okay, maybe I've come to one meeting to protest, and that would have been it. But I wanted to disabuse you of the idea that I had nothing better to do. I take care of a 7-room house, I take care of 2 dogs, and mow my own front lawn and big back lawn, and I go to the Y 5 times a week. I volunteer. I'm involved with my church. So when there was hope of reversing the ban on retractable leashes, I gave it 110%, like I do with any job that I take on. I didn't need to write 14 letters, 7 in March to newspapers and TV stations, and then 7 more in September before this proposed leash law was to be reviewed. My only regret in all this is that I was your best PR person, because before Lakewood got into the papers and on TV, I guess maybe 3 to 5% of people in Lakewood knew about the ban on retractable dog leashes. So I took up the time to look up the history of the retractable leash. It was successfully used for 111 years. And is a retractable leash leash for every dog? No. Large dog owners know this. I looked up your insurance company on that board. I've talked to 4 insurance companies, and you have condemned the retractable leash on hearsay evidence. Really, you say experts that have said, well, this or that might happen down the road. I gave the Mayor Summers my own list of experts that say a retractable leash is the best way to train a dog to heel, stay, come, and sit. So hearsay is inadmissible evidence in court. And I've checked with police records for the past 5 years. There's not one case of a retractable leash causing harm. At the very least, keep the ordinance on the books, but instruct that it is not to be enforced unless there is a problem or a complaint, not following people around the street calmly walking their dogs. So I guess that's it. I'm ready to divorce you all. But, perhaps Mr. O'Leary would like to share with his peers in the audience the name he called me at one of his meetings. Would you? It was Crazy Old Dog Leash Lady.
I don't believe that that's accurate whatsoever, ma'am. And I
A friend
respect your...
happened to have his cell phone on at the time and shared it with me. Better to be passionate about something than to be indifferent to those who are. Thank you.
Thank you. I do feel like I need to clarify that statement because I have no recollection of making that.
At that meeting too.
Well, I appreciate you joining us again this evening and sharing your thoughts about the law. And certainly, if I have ever uttered that phrase, which again I have not. I certainly don't think that that's an appropriate response to a citizen, and I think my responses to citizens over the last 6 years that I've served on council have not evidenced that kind of animus at any point in time. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our public comment for this evening. We'll now have announcements from the administration.
Thank you, President O'Leary, members of council, members of the audience. 2 points to share. At the printers is the next version of Lakewood Life. It will feature affordable housing and programs to address it, lead-safe Lakewood issues and strategies, home improvement resources, Census 2020, community awards, preservation strategies, and council's new handheld mobile phone texting ordinance with pictures of what behavior is permitted and what's not. So that's featured. That will eventually go to every postal address in the city, likely beginning next week. And lastly, I do want to share that Director Benno's been hard at work receiving and getting installed speed signals. These are the your speed is. As you may know, we've had two battery-operated units on Franklin Avenue near Marlow. Those are going to be replaced with more permanent solar-powered units. We'll have one unit on Arthur Avenue, 2 units on the east end of Franklin, and 2 units on Parkwood, one facing north, one facing south. That's a total of 7. And we have 5 more units, including the 2 that we already have that can be redeployed, and we're going to be working with our community police officers and you to understand how we can move these around. So that leaves 5 more units, 2 of which are solar, 3 of which are battery operated, to move across the community. And I know, listening to a lot of the conversations you were all having in the community, especially the candidates, how speeding has always been a concern, no matter what, and it's a really hard issue. And as Chief Malley points out, it was the first ordinance that the city of Lakewood passed, I think in about 1905, and that was to limit horses to less than 8 miles an hour at the time. So it has been and will remain a concern. The best option would be to ditch the cars, go to bikes, but then maybe scooters may be our peril. But nevertheless, these are designed to educate. Remember, there's 3 legs of the stool. There's enforcement, there's education, of which we're talking about here, which tells the driver what they're doing, and the last piece is traffic calming. And I believe we're going to be installing those speed tables pretty soon, are we not? Hey, Joe, speed tables on Marlow, I know there was some drama. They're in.
They were getting maybe some new anchor bolts. I know we put the puzzle together in the garage to make sure everything fit together, and then take it apart and take it back out to the street. Yeah, there were some different anchor bolts or additional anchor bolts. Each piece has 4 bolts that hold it down, so there's like 240 anchor bolts in one of the tables to drill in.
And we have 2 tables. So at any rate, we do have everything we need to get that installed, and that's a major element. And I think that probably is the leading traffic calming design for a community like ours, and I'm anxious to get it in, and I know you are too. So look for your Lakewood Life and look for those signs, and then let's work together on how to deploy the other 5.
Thank you. Any additional announcements from the administration? Hearing, I'm sorry, Director Gelsomino.
Thank you, Council. I just wanted to make sure that you have each had an opportunity to read the correspondence I sent to you about the documentary that we will be hosting right here in this space called Resilience, the Biology of Stress and the Science of Hope. It is a partnership with Metro, and in a time and place when we are talking about the physical consequences of trauma or adverse childhood experiences in almost everything that you read, this is an opportunity for all of us to see science connected to what many social workers have known or felt for many, many years. So I hope that you'll consider attending. It's October 22nd, 6:30. And it's about an hour. I did send you information so you can link to the trailer, and then there'll be some discussion afterward that may help guide a little bit more future planning coming next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any announcements from council? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I will point out that the Browns trail the 49ers 3-14 with about 7 minutes to go in the half. So there being no further business before council, I move to adjourn. A motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned.
It only took me 10 meetings.